All right, so everybody that's listening, we have a returning guest. She's one of our favorites. She is the woman of nutrition, the freedom fighter uh, in the hospital. She's telling the truth on nutrition, telling the truth on COVID. But we're going to be doing a soccer interview. Former FSU soccer player, and this is Tori Jensen. It's at the Tori Jensen on Instagram, no Twitter, which I was surprised by. But besides the point, you can go to torijensen.org for all your nutritional needs from her. And maybe you can hook up with her as far as working with her, and she'll help you get everything under control, balancing your blood sugar. I know that's one of the things that she definitely preaches. But enough of me, Tori. Let's hear from you. And thanks so much for coming on the program, as always.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. And I'm excited to talk nutrition and, updates on some of the other things, COVID related that I found. Yeah.
Oh,
And
jeez.
soccer. I know because there's always something, right? And I'm always like, wait, what? There's always something. But yeah, I'm running a Black Friday special. Actually, I just launched a new mini course on sugar cravings. Because when I talk to women, that's what people tell me they have the biggest problem with. So I specialize in weight loss and hormone balance for women. But like, I have a lot of people that say, you know what, if I could just get my sugar cravings under control, I think I could actually lose the weight and keep it off. And I'm like, I actually agree with you. And it's not so much a willpower problem as it is a fuel problem. And so I explain this in my mini course. It's half off right now. It's only $47. You guys, like, what do you have to lose, right? And then it's free for clients who sign up with me to work with me one-on-one. So yeah, it's a fun time of year.
And just to tease this, you don't have to be in California to, work with Tori. I know she's out of California. You can work with her online, Zoom, whatever it may be that she uses. So it's good for wherever you are. If you're out of country, in country, different states, it doesn't matter. So I would recommend it because, again, she is somebody that's been telling the truth on medical freedom. She's very knowledgeable. I follow her constantly, do get the updates when you put out new stories and new posts, because I, as a person that really has taken a liking into nutrition in general due to my issues, love to hear what you have to say and many other people that I follow now, because this is a lifestyle. Let's just put it, right out there. It's a lifestyle, and either you're in it or you're not. And I choose to be in it. I choose to hopefully live, God willing, a long, healthy, safe life. And I hope that other people do join this fight, because the obesity epidemic in this country is out of control, and it's going to trigger a lot of healthcare illnesses. If it hasn't triggered a healthcare illness with you already, we saw this through COVID, that people that had pre-existing conditions were the people that were getting very sick, and the people that were very healthy were pretty much fine. There was no issues, period. I don't know if you want to tap on that. I don't want to go too deep into this today, but because I do want to move into the soccer issues. But if you want to just put the exclamation point, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, you just didn't hear anyone talking about going outside and exercising and managing your stress and sleeping and being in community. And you didn't hear anyone talking about that. You just heard the fear mongering, and it continues today. And so I'll just tell you, if you're listening and you're thinking about, what can I do to stay healthy this holiday season, or just like for, we call it cold and fluvid season. Now we've added the fluvid. There's so much you can do from a lifestyle perspective to manage your health. It has nothing to do with medications. That's medications come in to fix a problem that lifestyle has created. So there is so much you can do to undo the lifestyle problems that we have in this country, but we aren't given the tools. Like, nutrition should be such a massive part of school, in my opinion, which is why I homeschool my kids. I'm like, my kids know more about nutrition than the average adult, because they don't teach us actually things that matter, like how to balance, your budget and how to manage your schedule, like when you have work and school and kids, all those things. Anyway, I digress. But the COVID thing, yeah, this morning, or not this morning, but I just was alerted to this fact. Fauci is now changing his tune on his recommendations to get vaccinated. He is saying that, it should be more of a choice. It should be more of a choice for people that are healthy or unhealthy. And so just to highlight again, like, these people don't have your best interest in mind. They're making money and they're flip-flopping wherever the wind takes them. So, take a big look at what's happened the last few years and think about what's best for you and your family and make some hard choices to do something different.
Just to be safe, people know how I feel on this subject, but we will say it because I do want to put this on YouTube, and I know they have
Oh yeah,
very
they've
much
got
problems with talking about these tough, touchy subjects, I should say. So we will say that the COVID-19 vaccine is very safe, very effective, and leave it up to you to do whatever you personally want to do. But we do say that it's extremely safe and extremely effective, and it will make sure that if you do get COVID, that it's very minimal risk as far as you getting long COVID or any other illnesses. So we'll say that just to put it out there for the people listening. I know people listening know what the truth holds. So we'll leave it there and move forward. I want to talk a little bit about soccer because I know that's where the interview is supposed to go. So we're going to make that a left-hand turn and get off at this exit here talking about soccer. So just talk about your love for soccer, Tori, and how it started in general.
Oh my gosh. When I think of when I think of my childhood, it's soccer. It was the best times and the worst times in my life have soccer involved because it was such a period of growth for me. That's where all my friends were. I was a military kid. So every time we moved, it was like I didn't have friends until I got on a soccer team. And then all of a sudden I had friends. And so, I mean, every good thing in my life, I feel like came from that. Learning how to be disciplined, learning how to push myself, right? So if you're listening to this and like you're not a soccer fan, just turn on some soccer, watch these kids run. These guys run for 90 minutes. These girls run for 90 minutes straight. You and I were both soccer players, and it is so fun to see my kids playing it now. And then to get back into it, I've been like diving into the NCAA women's Division I tournament, which is headed into the Elite Eight on Friday. And as a Florida State alumni, I'm happy to say Florida State went into this whole thing number one, and has just been absolutely routing people, just absolutely putting the wood to the people they are playing. So my prediction is Florida State all the way this year.
Yeah. Well, as a Gator fan, we don't like to say that, but we got to be truthful about how good Florida State is this year, but has been in the many past years, especially with Mark Krikorian, who really brought this team together in general, if we want to be truthful. And he's really made that team a powerhouse. I know you beat Florida quite a few times when you were there. Seems like that's our toughest opponent is to beat, especially in women's soccer, to beat Florida State in general,
Yeah.
whether it's in Tallahassee or in Gainesville. But let's go a little deeper into this. So you are raising two young girls in general, and I do want to get into that because I think that's a really big thing to talk about. A lot of people listening in do have young kids, so we'll talk about that in just a second. But just talk about playing. And did you play just high school? I believe you played some travel ball in general because I know we have ECNL now. We had ODP. So talk about your journey starting up and how that was as far as playing in those travel leagues.
Yeah, I played club from a young age, but not like I would say that I was on like the maybe not the best club team until high school, my later years. And that's when I turned it up. I said, you know what, I want to go play in college. This is actually something that I want to make happen. And so I would train in my garage every day after school for like 2 hours. My friends would be like, what happened to you? I was like, well, I need to get better. Cause I had a coach tell me actually, hey, you're good, but you're not that good. And and so that hit me hard, but that wasn't until I would say my sophomore year of high school. But sports are so competitive now. I live in Southern California. If your kid isn't already playing competitively at like 8 for soccer, they're going to be left behind when they get to 12. And it's insane. It's insane. So my kids play volleyball and soccer, and they're incredible athletes. Their dad was a professional volleyball player. I
Oh,
played
wow.
competitively. So it's fun for us, but we push them to be, to push themselves, right? To show them like, hey, if you want something, you have to work hard for it. But here's the deal. They play for the best volleyball club in the country. And right across the freeway is the best soccer club in the country, Surf. and wave volleyball is the best youth club. Southern California is insane. And I really don't think it's great for the kids to be pushed at such a young age. But it's this like sticky wicket we're in. Like if you don't give them the opportunities, then when they get older, they will have their skill set may not be there. So I don't know. We haven't quite figured that one out yet.
So your girls are young enough right now, as you stated, that you don't have to make that decision, correct then yet?
Yeah. We
Yeah.
just give them the opportunities. We put them in the situations where, hey, if you want this, if you love it, like, then they will be able to continue with that. But I already see the kids like coming off the field crying and their parents being crazy to them. And we had that, I'm sure you remember that. You had some of those parents where you're like, oh yeah, Jared's mom, like she's insane, like always yelling from the sidelines. But we really try to let them do their thing.
What direction do you feel like they're going into right now? Obviously, early age, things can change. Kids go through different stages in their lives, but obviously you see it firsthand. Do you feel like they're going to go in your direction where you played as far as in college? Or do you feel like they're going in more of your husband's direction where they could go the volleyball route?
It's hard to say. My kids are going to be taller than me. So, okay, let's talk. This is soccer too. Like I'm bringing it full circle. When I played soccer, I'm 5'4.5", right? Like I'm not that
Okay.
tall, but I wasn't that short for soccer. Like I
Right.
have like some of the best girls I played with were like 5 foot, 5'1", 5'3",
Right.
like, and we all say this, going back and watching soccer, these girls are gigantic compared to us.
Yeah.
The average player is like at least 5'8". I mean, that's like, and then you've got a lot taller girls but the shorter, these girls are incredible athletes. So the level of play in soccer has just skyrocketed and it's so competitive. Like all these teams that I'm looking at, these girls they're incredible athletes. They could excel in any sport that they wanted to play in. So my girls are going to be taller than me, but I don't know. It's kind of too early to say. They love soccer. They
Yeah.
love volleyball. We're just trying to keep it fun and, and get them out there and being active. And so that becomes a part of their lifestyle that, being active is how we were created and produces health.
Well, Tori, there is a lot of issues too with parents, and I saw this coaching down in Florida at the high school level in general. And if there's a girl that's very good, she's not playing high school. And that coach at that club is telling her, say, listen, if your girl plays high school, they might not even take that girl. She might be just as good, but they're worried about these injury issues. And if they do take the girl, they're going to be pushing that on the family and say, this girl is good. If you want her to play professionally or play in college, whatever it may be, and we think that she has the talent to do this, you better not make her play high school because she's one injury away of kissing those opportunities bye-bye. And
Yeah.
that's what's being pushed right now. And as you stated, the parents are extremely crazy. And there's really not that great coaches out there either. There's some really tough coaches out there. And I'm all for, you got to go out there and grab it if you want it, as you just stated. But the problem is, too, with some of these soccer coaches and some of these parents is they get a little psychotic. There is a point that you want your kids to be the best they can be, but there's also a point that if you really screw up their mental health and go extremely hard at these kids at a very young age, they're going to have some very serious problems down the road. We look at drugs, we look at alcohol, the list goes on and on. So it seems like with your girls, you're balancing that very well. How was that when you were growing up with your family in general? Were they pretty balanced as you are, or did you learn that you need to be balanced when you were a mother? If you had these girls that wanted to play soccer or volleyball, that you guys need to be very balanced because it wasn't a trait that was pushed out by your parents. So, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. And I think it generationally is different, right? Because our parents,
Right.
women didn't play. So when women didn't play sports, they didn't have the opportunity like I did. Now there were some, right? My coaches, I was born in 1982. So in the 90s, I had these trailblazers. One of my coaches was she won the women's national championship at George Mason back in the 80s. So she was like one of the first, she had this like 80s hair. Yeah, the thing. She had like a perm with like a mullet and she was she shaped me so much. My parents were like just on the sidelines clapping, and looking back, I'm so thankful for that. Like, you know, you
Oh,
have a bad game,
good.
and you're like, oh, you're pissed off, and your mom goes, good game, sweetie, and you're like, good game, were you even
Yeah.
watching that game? You know, and it's like, but your mom is going, hey, listen, you're, without saying it, your mom's going, soccer's not the most important thing in the world. Okay.
Right.
Like, you need to have some balance here. This is a game, literally. But I'll tell you this though, my dad is so competitive. He is incredibly competitive. His dad was a Olympic speed skater. So I have a long line
Yeah.
of like fast twitch, short legged, like quick. He was an Olympic speed. He was in the Olympic trials, broke his collarbone. This is a
Oh,
crazy story. He broke his collarbone. His coach leaned out over the track. This is like an outdoor ice rink, right?
mhm.
Back in the 30s, I think. His coach tripped him and he broke his collarbone, never went to the Olympics, ended up going to World War II instead, which is kind of crazy.
Wow.
But so my dad never let me win anything.
Wow.
My dad put me in the most loving way. My
Mm.
dad put me in my place. We'd go out for runs. And I think it was so healthy. Like, he was a runner. So we would train, we would run, you know, I'm 15. I think I'm like hot stuff, and I'm running. And the last 100 yards, he would just leave me in the dust every single time. And that kind of, that that created in me this desire to win, which I thank him for so much. But it was always like, hey, like, let's have fun with it, but you go your hardest when you're out there, and then you have to have that balance, because this is just a small part of your life, right? If you get hurt, you know, then what do you do? So how are your parents?
Yeah, I mean, uh, we don't want to get into that. That
How are
I it's very intense. It was very intense. It still is very intense. But we'll go with that. But maybe we'll talk about that off air. But but anyways, I want to go into this because you said you had this great coach from George Mason, as far as soccer goes. And then when did you kind of find that this could take me to college? I could get a scholarship to play at such a great school, Florida State University. And I'm thinking when you were going to college in the late 90s, correct?
early 2000s?
Early 2000. Okay, so Florida State was extremely good at football at that time because 99 was
Yes.
the
Yeah.
national championship year. And then they were still fairly good. I know Miami kind of took over after that, as
Yeah.
far as college football. We're not going to go through all that now, but regardless of that, when did you figure out that you wanted to play college soccer? And then talk about the journey of going to Florida State when you knew, hey, this is where I want to go.
Yeah, so I think I didn't even necessarily know that I really had the opportunity to play in college until like that sophomore year, where my coach was like, listen, like, you're good, but you're not that good. And
Right.
that was a wake up call for me, because I wanted things that I wasn't equipped for. So that's where my training, I put my head down, and I played soccer. I was like obsessed with it in like the
Mhm.
best way. I think it kept me out of a lot of trouble too. When you have those goals, and I knew that I had to do well in school. Like, I had to stay out of trouble. I had to be disciplined. And I also had that same coach when I was I had a lot, you know, no surprise to you guys if you know my story of, you know, getting walked out of the hospital, but I had an attitude problem when I was 12. And she said, listen, you're one of the best. This was a
Well, hold
different
on.
situation.
I don't think that's much of an attitude issue. I think that's more of a health issue, but I mean, we can move forward with that.
Well, that I was just like, I've always had an opinion, right? And I've never been afraid to share it. And
Yeah.
my coach put me in my place, that same amazing coach. She was so incredible, because I had a lot of respect for her. She said, you are one of the best players on my team. This was prior to what I was, when I was told I wasn't that good. She's like, but your attitude sucks so bad, I'm not going to take you this season. And I
Mm.
said, what? And so that was the best thing an eighth grade girl could have heard, right? Someone who just had a bad attitude. My parents were like, thank God someone else said it to her. And so but it was awesome. And then I got
Nice.
on, we combined two really competitive club teams my senior year of high school, and we beat everybody. It was so much fun. We beat everybody. So I was in Northern Virginia, and we combined these two club teams, and pretty much everyone went to D1 schools, and it was so much fun. I took a visit down to Florida State, and I wanted that big school feel and this program like that was up and coming, because in 2000, when I started at Florida State, we had never made the NCAA tournament, but Patrick Baker was our coach that year. He took over in 1999, and he brought on a big recruiting class, and we went to the tournament for the first time that season. So it was so much, and we beat UNC. I mean, it was a big season for us.
So just going a little deeper into that, because when we talk about Patrick Baker, so he personally recruited you. You met him before you got to Florida State. Obviously, as you just stated, you want that big school vibe. But I mean, there's tons of big schools around the country in general.
Yeah. Well, yes, Florida State was recruiting me, James Madison. So I lived in Northern Virginia. So James Madison was a school that I probably would have gone to if I hadn't gone to Florida State. It was kind of like a local, that would have been my local choice. A lot of girls I played with went there. Texas Tech was recruiting me, and Mississippi Ole Miss. So I wasn't like heavily recruited. I wasn't in the ODP program like you were talking about, the Olympic Development Program, because I didn't start hitting my stride until high school. And I actually am kind of thankful for that, because I did have a really balanced childhood and I didn't burn out. One of the best girls I played with, like, she was the best girl in our area. She didn't play in college. She was over it. She was burnt out and decided, like, I don't want that. So she just had a normal college career. And so there's always, that happens to a lot of kids.
Well, that's what we were talking about earlier, that if you go too hard at these kids too early, again, we do want parents to push their kids to be the best they can be. And some kids need to be put in their place, as you stated too. But there's a difference if you're doing it consistently all day, every day, than if you're doing it once in a while to teach the kid a lesson. And, as you stated, maybe that girl had some tough parents or tough coaches, or just was, totally burned out in general due to those issues and due to playing ODP and every tournament at Christmas and Thanksgiving, and the list goes on and on. There's tons of these tournaments. We see them at Disney all the time, that they have these tournaments. Every kind of break that kids get, there's some sort of tournament, and these kids up down there playing. And it's nice to play at Disney, but I'm sure you get burned out and you want to just say, like, kind of screw soccer or screw basketball or screw volleyball for now. I just want to hang around with my family or hang around with my friends or go to a theme park, or the list goes on. And these kids aren't doing that. So as you stated, so many years, it's like playing professionally because you
Yeah.
don't get a break. And these people don't get a break. That's their lifestyles. And these kids aren't getting breaks. So yeah, you might get a couple that are going to keep playing and playing and playing, and that's their love and stuff. But you're going to get a lot of these kids that, as you stated, they're going to get burned out. So it's truly sad, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. Getting into Florida State. So you played there 2 years. I know you talked about in the last interview that you got homesick, wanted to come home. Talk a little bit more about those 2 years, beating Florida, beating UNC, excuse me. Were you on the field a lot? Just kind of talk about those years in general, if you could, to the audience.
Yeah. So I was a defender, and I was a very inconsistent player. And I think that especially if you have girls, or if you're a coach, or you have kids just in general, like, hormones are no joke. And looking back, looking back, I'm not blaming my inconsistency on that. I blame it on my immaturity, my mental toughness. Like, I did not have the tools that I have now that I actually work on with my clients, my nutrition clients. I did not have the tools to be consistent. And so I was like, I was a starter sometimes when I was having a good week, because I was either like crushing it and literally crushing it, or I was a mental midget. So I was very inconsistent. So I definitely got playing time, and was a part of that team, but I was disappointed in, how much playing time and like how the lifestyle of a student athlete was so rigorous. I just wasn't ready for it. So at 18, I went to college, and I did not have the tools, and I think a lot don't, to be successful and balance it all. I didn't know how to balance all the school, being away from my family for the first time, the pressure of performing day in and day out. And okay, to bring it back to the female body too, I also don't think people coaching women understand that hormonally we go through cycles every month, and it drastically affects our body. Had I understood that then, I think I could have maybe played to that. But with soccer, it's like it's all gas all the time. You're sprinting, right? Every day, all day, you're lifting weights, you're going hard, and that doesn't give your body time to rest. And I think it really caused problems for me. And I know for a lot of the girls I played with. So, but it was the best time of my life.
Well,
Beating,
yeah, go ahead. No,
that was, yeah.
You said beating. Go ahead. Finish up.
Beating UNC. I mean, UNC is a dynasty program.
Right.
I mean, they have won more titles in women's soccer than any other team. They are the team to beat, at least when I was there, and we beat them my freshman year. It was unbelievable.
I want to go into that, talking about the cycles in general. Obviously, it's not happening for men. And the
Yeah.
people that are saying that it is with this trans men stuff are in a trance by themselves. But anyways, we'll get into that in just a moment. But, I want to talk about that because that is an issue, that there are all these men, and there should be some men coaching women, just like, there should be some.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are all these men rather coaching women's soccer. It's predominantly probably about 95% men coaches. I don't know the correct number, but I'm saying from what I've watched and what I've heard, I'm thinking it's about 95%-ish with that said. So you have all these men, they don't know much about women besides maybe if they've raised girls, maybe they have a little bit of better of a sense. Again, they're still not a woman, so they can't feel what a woman feels. They can't know what a woman knows as far as circumstances, college circumstances, life circumstances, the list goes on and on. So why do you feel that is, that there are not enough women coaching women's soccer in general? Because there's been tons of great players that have played on the national team, that have played at colleges. And I don't know if it's just the athletic directors not giving them opportunities, but I've asked these questions to many people and no one can give a really good answer. And it's still a huge question mark because we see all these really good teams and the majority of them are coached by men.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. I would say some of it has to do with results, right? If these male coaches are getting incredible results, they're going to continue to get jobs. Not to say that the female coaches can't get incredible results, but if I don't know if the opportunities just aren't being given, or the women aren't wanting these jobs. I mean, it's a really high, intense, stressful job, because if you don't get results, you lose your job. I mean, that's the main thing. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, that female coach I had, she changed my life. She was an incredible role model for me. I don't know why it's mostly men. I will say though, this is crazy. I'm just going to say it because like, we're just putting it all out there. I listen better to male coaches. I do. There's just something in our DNA. I think that when a female coach comes, I have more issue with her. I mean, I have more interpersonal conflicts with women, but there's a whole thing where it's like we just don't give the crap to the male coaches. We just don't. So I don't know and that is That is a huge generalization. I'm speaking of my own self personally, but as a coach too. So when I coached youth, I'd have these 12-year-old girls. I'm out there talking to them and they're not, I'm like, hey, listen, hey, they're not, I did not command authority. Now that was my own issue. Then you have this male coach come over and he's like, girls, get lined up. And everyone's like, whoop, up too. So I don't know. That's just, I don't think that, I think that, men are, they have a different energy than the women do. And maybe there's something to that. That's just my observation.
With all the boss babe stuff going on and all these women say they don't need a man for this, they don't need a man for that. I don't know how it would play now if you say about
Yeah.
the man thing, but
No, I'm
that's
just,
me. We see it in the dating world. We see it. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, I'm not saying it's just my observation. I'm not saying it's right or
Right.
wrong. I'm a strong boss babe woman, but like I see how my kids react to my husband when I say the same thing that he does. And it's just, yeah.
Anyways, let's just talk about that. So continuing on, Tori, about what's going on in women's sports. So speaking about the athletic department, when you were at Florida State and playing soccer for 2 years, because I see this with a lot of athletic departments around the country, that the football team and the basketball team for men are getting all the money, all the publicity, all the NIL money, especially now with that coming about.
Oh
And
yeah,
the
that's
women's
crazy.
sports get screwed. You could have a really good women's soccer team winning national championships. They're not getting anything. I can probably guarantee the girls that go to Florida State that get that kind of money that a football player would get, as far as them winning national champions at the women's soccer level. Same things with gymnastics, same thing with volleyball, and the list goes on and on. So when you were at FSU, and obviously this was in the late 90s, early 2000s, where you were in college at that time, what was going on with the athletics department and how they were treating women's sports during that time you were there?
Well, just to give a different side of that, all the sports benefit when the football team is really good, or the
True.
baseball team is really
That's
good,
fair.
or the basketball team is really good. So we benefited from the football team being excellent. I mean, our facilities were incredible. Now it started, right? Like I
Mhm.
remember that during preseason, our training room like was in the basement and everything was old and crappy. And then throughout the season, we moved up to the main floor where there was like windows, we get our ankles taped. So it was like gradually moving up, but that's really, everybody benefits. And it's hard to say because like women's soccer does not bring in the money that the football team does. So not to say that we weren't respected, but we definitely weren't given the resources the football team does. It's a money thing. And this goes to like women's sports in general. Yes, it would be nice if women's sports or athletes got paid the same as men, but they don't bring in the money. And I'm saying
Yeah.
this objectively, like, is being a female athlete my identity? Absolutely. Do I think women should be treated the same as men, given the same opportunities? Absolutely. But it's a money issue. We are not bringing in the money that the other sports are. So we don't get the money. I mean, that's the way the world works. That's business.
So then let's talk about the equal pay issue, since you're tapping on that. That's been huge with the women's national team, and
Yeah.
they're fighting. I used to have a lot of respect for some of those women that are the top players. Now not so much, due to them politicizing this team. It was very sad that we saw in the World Cup that a lot of these women weren't putting their hand over their hearts. They're kneeling. There was a woman that has blonde hair on the team with a very short cut, who runs around.
Purple.
Yeah, purple hair, blonde hair, all kinds of different colors. And she's running around doing all these political stances. She's saying that she wants a trans woman playing women's soccer. I have trouble even comprehending those words, but she's saying that now she's retired. So, of course, she's okay with it because she's out of the game. She doesn't have to compete with men in women's sports. Alex Morgan, even someone like her that I used to respect, she's talking kind of psychotic now. I don't know what the hell is going on with that team. It's starting to get very much out of control when you have half of the team kneeling or not putting their hand over their hearts, and there's only two or three women that are in the starting lineup actually showing respect. It's just psychotic. So, and even to go back to the equal pay thing, and then I'll shut up and let you answer. I agree with you. If these women aren't, they're winning, that's great. And if they're not getting the crowds, if they're not selling the jerseys, then yeah, I mean, the men should be getting more if they're doing that. If they're not, then they shouldn't be. The woman should be getting more if they're doing it. It's all
Absolutely.
about money and production. If you're not producing, then you're not going to get it. If you are producing, then you should get it. Even if your team sucks. The U.S. men team, they kind of suck still. But they're still bringing in the cash. So this equal pay thing, I'm sorry, it's just not it. If you're in a regular job and you're doing the same jobs, Tori and I are doing the same job and we're producing the same, yes, there should be equal pay there. But if I'm doing 2 or 3 jobs and she's only doing one and she wants to get paid the same as I do, no, let's not do that. So maybe you have a different opinion. I'm not sure, but maybe we're
I do. Absolutely. And I mean, not to throw this out there too, but like, just in general, I don't think athletes should make the money that they make because period, they get the endorsements. If the companies want to pay for them to endorse their products and make big money that way, just like with these student athletes, I think great, do that. But I just to throw money for colleges, to throw money at these players, but it's business. Again, these boosters who have deep pockets and they want to see their team win, they are throwing tons of money at these players. Now, let me tell you how this used to go when I was in school. Okay, now this is alleged. This is my observation, but these guys would be driving around nice cars. You know that those are not their nice cars, but this was before the NIL money came in. This was before you could be sponsored and be an athlete, right? And because back then, if you were taking money, like you could not take money and be a student athlete. But they'd be driving around these cars. They were leasing them for like $5 a month or something, so, oh, it's like a loophole. Why is this kid driving like this Escalade? I don't understand, but they were just, so maybe it solved some problems actually, but I just wonder, because you and I aren't on the sports teams anymore. I wonder how it's affecting the team dynamics too, to have these players who are making tons of money and their image, they're getting money for, you got to wonder how that's messing up.
They had an issue at, sorry to interrupt you. They had an issue at University of Florida. There was a freshman coming in to the football team who's the quarterback. And he, again, never played in college, period. And he was very highly recruited. They were going to give him $7 million to start out of the gate. No one saw this guy play against SEC talent. And obviously, that's the top conference for football in the country. And actually, I give a lot of respect to the head coach at University of Florida for putting the kibosh on that and saying, we're not doing that. We're not giving some guy that we never saw play before $7 million to come out of the gate like that. And, as you stated, what's going on with the offensive lineman or, the running back or a wide receiver that's maybe like the third or fourth wide receiver. So, yes, that's going to create some bad dynamics probably in the locker room because there's different money flowing around for different people. And it's going to hurt that locker room. I agree with that. And I also think, and a lot of people aren't talking about that, people are talking about what you just stated, Tori, but they're not talking about this issue. There's an issue that what's going on with the money that's going to just these teams that are really good. So Florida, Alabama, Florida State. I mean, the list goes on in these big conferences, the ACC, the SEC. These teams are getting tons and tons of money, and it is helping the women's soccer program, the volleyball program. So they're getting all these players too, but they're maybe not making much money, period, in the NIL. but they're still coming to these schools, and they're making these super conferences now. So,
Yeah.
you look at the women's soccer for the brackets for the NCAA tournament, you're getting like 8, 9 teams coming out of the ACC out of 64.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's
And
11. And then
into
you
the
get
Final Four.
yeah.
The Final Four, I think there's not the Final Four, the Elite Eight. I
Elite
think
Eight,
there's
yeah.
four teams from the ACC in
Yeah,
the Elite Eight.
so we're looking at, hypothetically, let's just say they had 11 teams. They didn't. I believe they had like 7 or 8. But, if you got 11 teams, the SEC's got 5, you're already at 16 teams out of the 64 from 2 conferences. So if you're playing in the Horizon League or the WCC and these teams all over in these smaller conferences, American East, we could go on and on. They're just about getting 1 team in there. And so you're making, again, these super conferences for these college sports. And if you're in these little conferences, you're kind of a joke. So it's hurting college sports in general in that dynamic, but also the dynamic that we just spoke about too.
Well, and these super conferences are coming from these super teams because of the money. So if you are, let's say you're like the best player on your small school, the next year you're transferring. And this didn't happen when you and I were in school. This is like because you would lose a year of eligibility, right? When you transferred. So now they transfer and they're saying, oh, it's like they're free agents. And so it's more like professional. They're getting the money like the professional players do. They're transferring like professional players do. So it is a way more fluid game. It's like the Wild West kind of. It's sort of, there's not as much loyalty to your teams either. So I don't think what the NIL is doing to college sports, because I think that was what's beautiful about college sports is it was different than the professional that was muddied the waters with all the money.
The only girls that I see that are making cash, whether it's basketball, soccer, or stuff, are the girls that are really good looking.
Yeah.
And they're making that cash, boy. And we've
like
seen
the
that
Miami Twins, the
Miami
basketball
well,
players.
One of them, the other one's kind of retired. But one of them just is transferring to TCU because they have 1 year left for the COVID year. So she's going to go and play for TCU. So it goes to your argument about the free agency, because that girl played, I believe, in California. I forgot the team that she played at, and then went to Miami, and then is now going to TCU. And the same thing happened with the sister. The sister's not playing at TCU. She quit. And they're loaded now. They're making like $2-3 million a year.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the gymnast. I forgot her name from LSU.
Olivia,
yeah, whatever her last name is. She's making tons of money.
Yeah.
She's loaded too. Again, I hate to say it, but if you're a good-looking woman, you're going to make that cash if you play the sports. And if you're not that good-looking, you're out on your ass. I'm sorry.
That's just the way of the world, though. I mean, it is like it's the companies are going to pay for the good-looking girls to sponsor their whatever that they have and be
but
their
there's
name
also a
face.
problem too, and this goes into dating. We're not going to get into dating, but I do want to bring this up.
How's your dating life? Yeah.
Hold on. This goes into, we'll change the subject on that. This goes into the simpy guy syndrome is what I call it.
Simpy guy. Oh, okay.
They've made a lot of men simpy and they'll pay money to watch these women on OnlyFans. I call it the simpy guy syndrome.
Okay.
And it's very sad. This goes into the boss babe. We don't need a man.
Yeah.
Men are the devil. The list goes on and on. And that's, again, where some of these women are profiting off of.
Yeah.
And there can be athletes, there can be non-athletes. And again, if they're good looking, they're going to make that cash. And if you're not, or you're mediocre looking, you ain't. And it's sad because that's not good for somebody like you that has girls growing up in the world. And we see this on Instagram all the time, that there's all these girls that are in thong pics or showing off their boobs and shit. I think it's terrible for society. because it's creating, again, the simpy man syndrome that's not good for our society in general. And it's treating women to just show off their body and they'll get cash, which is like a prostitution society now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's
And you,
it's
this,
that
yeah,
simple. It's not, you have to use that strong language to get through to people to see what OnlyFans is. That's what it is.
yeah,
You're
and
getting
it
paid.
is. It's a
Yeah.
prostitution society, and it's truly sad. And there's so much pornography going on, and it ruins men and women. We should be truthful on that too, because this whole different rabbit hole. But the guys are watching the pornography and they think sex is rape, and the women don't know the difference because there's no sex, you know, controlled sex education at all. It's just watch pornography and watch girls getting choked out and having their hair pulled and all kinds of crazy screwed up shit. In plain English, I hate to use the swear words on here, but it's truly sad what's going on in our society. I'm sorry I
Yeah.
divvied off into
No,
that.
no, it needs to be talked about because people are
Yeah,
like, oh, boys will be boys. And it's like, oh no, did you know that the pornography industry is funded, is supplied, or sorry, is the sex trafficking industry fund,
yeah.
like supports the pornography industry. So it's cyclical. If you're watching porn, you're supporting sex trafficking, period. And I know people don't want to look at it that way, but that's the reality. You follow the money and that's where it goes.
Listen, we've interviewed guys on here that have been porn stars that have directed porn films, and they talk about this stuff that personally I wouldn't even think about in general. That, and I won't get too graphic, but we'll put the exclamation point on this, that they'll match people's skin tones. And, because we'll just say in nice terminology that if the guy can't get his organ going, that they'll bring in another guy that has a similar skin tone to him, and that's how they'll do it. And you
Oh,
don't even
interesting.
know. And
Interesting.
it was extremely interesting what going on. And we asked about fetishes. You can
Oh
go
my
back.
gosh.
The guy is actually from California, and he was on National Geographic. His name is Mickey Royal. You can go back in and watch that. We're gonna
Mickey
have him on
Royal.
again because it's a topic that always gets a lot of views, and we always get a lot of people thinking about that due to what's going on with that industry in general. I want to finish off because I want to be gracious with your time, and I know we're extremely low on it. So let's just talk about this and finish off with the issue with men in women's sports. It's a huge problem. When you were growing up, this was a non-issue.
Non-issue.
Growing up, it was a non-issue. It's
Non-issue.
like the past 5-ish years, it's become an issue. I think that most men that are real men don't want to play against women.
No.
They would rather win against a man. But there
Yes.
are some men out there that have some, personally, I believe, sick fetishes that they want to beat a woman and they're proud about that. As a woman that played high level soccer at Florida State University, what would you do if there was a guy that came on the field that was dressed up as a woman that was 6'2", 6'3", and was over there getting these headers,
Oh,
scoring goals, and just demolishing these women that didn't have the same body mass as them? And we've saw that men are faster than women. They're
yeah.
stronger than women. This is
Yeah.
not some kind of
It's called testosterone. No. Yeah. It's called testosterone. That's why we make all the people, the girls, we have high estrogen, high progesterone. We make all the people, you guys carry all the heavy stuff. It's supposed to be that way. That's just how it's supposed to be. So here's the thing. This is where I get really lit up, because if I saw that guy out there, I would absolutely try to make his life a living hell. That's just me personally. This is my cross to bear. I would be like, oh, so you think you can play with the girls? Like, well, actually, I'm not only am I a biological girl, I'm actually going to beat you too. So I think there's a lot of that happening. But then it becomes a safety issue. Let me read this. Let me read this to you. A transgender woman footballer quits and threatens to sue for discrimination because rivals refuse to compete against her after she left opponents terrified and broke a knee of a player blocking her shot. This just was November 20th, 23. This is in England. This is a transgender woman playing soccer or football, footballer, as they say. It's a safety issue. And listen, if you're not, these guys that are playing on the girls' sports, they're not good on the guys' teams. That's why they're doing it. Not to mention that they have an identity problem. They have then, and this comes back to, I think, our society telling you can be anything you want to be. Like, that's not good for us. God made you a man. And because of our brokenness, like in our society, we don't value the way that God made us, right? But telling you that you can be a woman is a lie. It's not loving. And people will say, well, let them be what they want to be. No, it's not loving someone to let them live a lie, not to mention the billions of dollars that the pharmaceutical industry is going to make off of these people who are transitioning and ruining their body forever. That's the reality. But it should not be allowed. It's absolutely absurd. And it's a non-issue. And as far as I'm concerned, I can't believe we're still talking about it.
Well, like I said, you have two girls that are growing up now. It could happen where you live.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
It's not far-fetched.
No, my daughter had a girl on her team who was identifying as a boy. Now, so that wasn't quite that issue, right? I mean, it's a little bit, but she was 7. And so let me tell you, like, I was a tomboy. I wore boys' clothes when I was younger.
Sure.
But no one ever told me I could be a boy. They were just like, oh yeah, she wants to play sports. Like, that's the issue. It's like, why should we have to be a boy to be good at something? No. Like, my female body is incredible and I can be really good at sports and still be a girl.
You can make a child.
Yes. And I can play and I can be incredible at sports. Like, you can do both, right? It is a really a breakdown in our culture. And not to mention, like, we must have no problems if all of a sudden we're focusing on our gender. That means this is a society that is now, we have so few problems, we're creating problems, like just like the fall of the Roman Empire. Like, we're hypersexualizing everything. We're not focusing on what really matters because we're bored and we're on TikTok, and we don't have community. And so these boys or these girls are seeing, oh, I could be different. I could actually stand out if I choose to be the opposite sex. But really it's destroying people's lives. And you have all these detransitioners who are coming out and telling that story. But there's parents, and I hear it all the time because I live in California, so it's an epidemic around here. Like, every elementary school has 1 or 2 kids that are identifying as the opposite sex. And the parents are going to the doctor, and the doctor is saying, hey, if you don't help your kid transition, they're going to commit suicide. They're not saying, which is, first of all, no one has the research on that. What the research says is that if your kids are transitioning, they are going to be much more likely to commit suicide. That's what the research says. So,
well, you should also look at what your kid is eating. You should also make sure that your kid is not on all these medications. And when they're born, they're not getting all these needles inside them.
Chemicals, artificial, chemicals that your body just wasn't made for.
Yeah, so maybe that could be having effects. Also, there's glyphosate in everything in the freaking world now. Yeah. All these pesticides. I mean, it's a joke. So why don't we look into that instead of looking into pushing pills and killing people in plain English? That's what they're doing. They're really killing people, and it's inch by inch with this detransitioning BS. Well, whatever the hell it's called. I get confused by all these damn terms. It's all bullshit to me. I hate to say that, but it's really disgusting. So I know our time's coming to an end. So Tori, I know we got cut off for a second, but we are back here. And if you could just end before we cut the interview short here, and I Always appreciate having you on. If we could just end with these players that are just pushing all this nonsense. And again, they're on their way out. Alex Morgan's probably got a year left, maybe less. Megan Rapinoe already retired. These people are on their way out, and they're pushing this agenda on their way out so that the up and coming players have to deal with whatever the hell they're pushing.
Yeah, well, I think we saw their performance in the Women's World Cup was less than desirable, and I think they really let politics get involved there. It's when you aren't respecting the country that you are representing, like go to another country. I mean, I have very clear feelings on this. Like, if you don't like America, go somewhere else. Like, there's other places that would take you. Like America, you have so many freedoms here that it's now become a problem because, we are totally take advantage of them, take them for granted. But with these players, I think that they don't want to be told no, right? What we're told in our society is that however you feel is the right way to feel. And so now we've been pushed into a corner with these men because of the LGBTQ agenda, which we have these men now. We're like, oh, well, crap. Like, we're saying that they can be whatever they want to be, but so I guess we got to let them play with us. Like, ooh, but where are all the angry feminists that
yes, where are
the angry feminists? Like my coach that like forged the way, like she like blazed a trail so that I didn't have any issues, that I had so many opportunities, a woman, and now we're backtracking. Where are all those angry feminists? I think they're just like
feminist I see out there right now is Riley Gaines, who had to put up with the BS that went on. And then they have some Trump person put her address on because she endorsed Ron DeSantis for president. So it's just a joke what's going on. That's a whole different subject, and I don't want to detour rather into the Trump DeSantis problem. But Riley Gaines is the only one that's standing up and fighting as far as that, or the only woman that are actually standing up and fighting are the women that have to deal with this, or that have gotten injured by this, or have lost races or competitions or games to this.
Yeah. All of the progress that we made, like Title IX, right, to allow women to play women's sports and to make sure there's money for that set aside. It's for nothing. If we're going to let boys come in, Woman of the Year is a man, Miss Universe is a man. Like, don't you see it? Like, put a pause on it for a second and just step back. Don't you see what's happening? All the men are taking over everything again. Hello. Like, they're just saying, oh, if I can't be good at this as a man, then I'm going to come play with the women. Like, no, all the men that are playing in the women's sports weren't good, couldn't compete on the men's side. So like, sorry, you guys suck. Don't come over here and try to steal our thunder and hurt us with all your testosterone. Like, you have too much of it. Like, go somewhere else. Like, this is unacceptable, and I will not stand for it with my kids. Like, you better believe, in a very loving way, I'm going to say, listen, sir, you're a girl, like, go play with the boys, like, or whatever it is, whichever you are, go play with the way God made you. I'm sorry that hurts your feelings. This is the real world we're living in. That's it. Period. Done.
Tori Jensen at the Tori Jensen on Instagram. Definitely check her posts, her stories, and then ToriJensen.org. We're going to have her on again for specifically fully nutrition. It's always good to talk to you, Tori. You are a freedom fighter. You are a true champion for women, men. The list goes on. And I really hope that, we do another one of these conversations. I know we're going to do nutrition, but in general, you tell the truth. There's no BS. It's always nice to talk to somebody that's like that. So thanks again for coming on.
You too. Thank you for having me, and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.